Beneath the waves lies a forgotten chapter of human history. This video explores 20 underwater discoveries that suggest lost prehistoric civilizations thrived where oceans now flow. You will gain a completely new perspective on our ancient past, seeing the seafloor as a vast museum of vanished worlds. We will examine mysterious structures off the coast of Japan and a bizarre formation hidden in the Baltic Sea, asking what they reveal about societies erased by time. What does it mean for our story if the evidence of our ancestors is sleeping under the sea? The first clue lies in the clear blue waters near a remote Japanese island. There, resting on the seafloor over 80 feet down, is a structure that looks like it was carved by human hands. The Yonaguni monument is a colossal formation of sandstone, with wide terraces that drop like giant steps, sharp edges that meet in perfect right angles, and what many observers describe as pillars and ceremonial gateways. It was first noticed in the 1980s by a diver exploring the area, and it has captivated researchers ever since. The sheer scale is breathtaking, a monument larger than many ancient temples found on land. But the central question remains a profound puzzle. Is this a masterpiece of nature or a monument from a lost civilization? The forces of ocean currents and geological shifts can create incredible shapes over millions of years, and some scientists see Yonaguni as a spectacular example of that natural artistry. They point to the sandstone's natural fracturing patterns, which can create flat plains and sharp divisions. Yet others look at the same features and see something entirely different. They argue that the precise geometry is too consistent, the parallel lines too deliberate, the stair-like formations too regular to be purely random. If human builders were responsible, the timeline is staggering. Geological evidence suggests this area was above water during the last ice age, meaning it could have been built over 10,000 years ago, a time when mainstream history tells us humans were simple hunter-gatherers. This would place its construction in the Jomon period of Japan, a culture known for its intricate pottery but not for monumental stone architecture. The Yonaguni monument stands as a silent, enigmatic sentinel. It challenges our assumptions about ancient technology and forces us to ask whether our maps of prehistoric achievement are missing entire chapters now submerged beneath the rising seas. The mystery of human hands shaping stone does not end in the warm Pacific. Far to the north, in the cold, dark waters of the Baltic Sea, a discovery emerged that seemed to defy all earthly explanation. In 2011, a team of Swedish treasure hunters were scanning the seafloor with sonar, hoping to find old shipwrecks. What appeared on their screen was something entirely different. Resting at a depth of nearly 300 feet was a massive, circular object, roughly 200 feet across. Its shape was unnervingly precise, a perfect circle with what looked like a smaller, raised circle at its center. Surrounding it were strange, angular features that resembled staircases or passageways, and stretching behind it for over 1,000 feet was a long, deep track, as if the object had skidded to a halt across the seabed. The image was so bizarre and otherworldly that it was quickly nicknamed the Baltic Sea Anomaly, with many online immediately calling it a sunken, unidentified flying object. The initial excitement was electric, suggesting we had found proof of something not of this world, or perhaps a technological relic from a civilization far older than we knew. Yet science often seeks simpler answers. Geologists who examined the data proposed a more mundane origin. They suggested the anomaly could be a glacial deposit, a large boulder left behind by a retreating ice age glacier thousands of years ago. The unusual shapes, they argued, could be the result of natural geological processes like melting ice or sediment erosion. Even the long track could be explained by the object dragging along the seafloor. But the mystery deepened when the divers reported strange phenomena. Their electrical equipment would reportedly fail when they approached the object, only to function normally once they moved away. Samples retrieved were said to contain metals not typical for the region. While these claims are heavily debated and lack peer-reviewed verification, they added layers of intrigue that the glacial theory could not easily dismiss. The Baltic Sea Anomaly ultimately presents us with a fascinating choice. Do we accept the geological explanation, a remarkable but natural formation? Or do we allow the possibility that this oddity is something else entirely, a remnant of a forgotten human installation or a geological oddity so rare it mimics artificial design? It challenges us to look at the seafloor not just as a graveyard for ships, but as a canvas where nature's art and humanity's lost works might be tragically indistinguishable. What other shapes are hiding in the deep, waiting for a sonar ping to bring them into the light? While the Baltic anomaly remains a debate between geology and mystery, the search for lost cities beneath the waves has yielded targets of breathtaking scale. Off the western coast of Cuba, in the deep, silent darkness over 2,000 feet down, lies perhaps the most staggering underwater discovery of all. In 2001, a team working on deep-sea sonar mapping made an astonishing find. Their equipment revealed a series of massive, geometric formations sprawled across the seabed. What they saw looked for all the world like the ruins of a vast urban complex. The sonar images showed what appeared to be smooth, flat-topped pyramids, wide plazas, and long, straight lines intersecting like a grid of ancient roads. The sheer size of the site is monumental, covering an area larger than many modern cities. The depth is crucial, for it places this potential city in a time far removed from our own. For this area to have been dry land, built upon and inhabited, global sea levels would have needed to be nearly 400 feet lower than they are today. That points to a possible age of at least 10,000 years, a time when the last great ice sheets were still retreating. This timeline places any potential builders in a prehistoric era, long before the rise of known Mesoamerican civilizations like the Maya or the Aztec. Could this be evidence of a precursor culture, a sophisticated society whose achievements were entirely lost to the rising oceans? The idea immediately sparked comparisons to the legendary Atlantis, a technologically advanced island nation said to have sunk beneath the sea in a single day and night. The location off Cuba in the Atlantic fits the general region often associated with the myth. However, the scientific community urges extreme caution. The extreme depth makes direct exploration by human divers impossible, and even robotic submersibles have provided only limited visual data beyond the initial sonar scans. Geologists suggest alternative explanations, such as unusual formations of naturally fractured granite or other volcanic rock that can sometimes create surprisingly regular, block-like shapes. Yet the haunting regularity of the layout, the apparent right angles and symmetrical patterns, continue to challenge a purely natural origin. This Cuban underwater city remains in a state of profound limbo. It is too deep to easily verify, too structured to easily dismiss. It represents the ultimate tease of underwater archaeology, a ghostly outline on a sonar screen that whispers of a possible lost world. It forces us to confront a humbling possibility that the most dramatic evidence of our ancient past may not be buried under sand, but submerged under miles of ocean, waiting for technology to catch up to the scale of the mystery. The transition from deep-sea sonar ghosts to tangible stone is a powerful one. In the coastal waters off Western India, the line between ancient legend and physical discovery becomes beautifully blurred. Here, the search is not for an anonymous ruin, but for a city with a name and a story, the fabled Dwarka, the golden city of Lord Krishna. For centuries, the Mahabharata, a monumental Hindu epic, described Dwarka as a magnificent fortified island city, a prosperous kingdom that Krishna built. The texts recount its tragic end, saying the glorious city was swallowed by the sea after Krishna's departure from the world. For a long time, this was considered a profound myth, a symbolic tale. Then, marine archaeologists began to look. What they found off the coast of modern Gujarat was staggering. Submerged in the Arabian Sea, they uncovered extensive stone structures, massive fortification walls, and a network of what appeared to be piers and wharves. They retrieved stone anchors, pottery shards, and other artifacts that, when tested, dated back over 3,000 years. The layout of the submerged ruins even seemed to match the descriptions of the city's design from the ancient texts. This is not a mysterious, nameless formation. This is archaeology directly echoing mythology. The discovery suggests that the story of Dwarka is not pure fiction, but a cultural memory of a real, major coastal urban center that met a catastrophic end. Geological studies of the region show evidence of significant shoreline changes and rising sea levels around that period. It appears a thriving port city, a center of trade and power, was indeed consumed by the advancing ocean. The significance of Dwarka cannot be overstated. It provides a stunning case study in how oral traditions and sacred texts can preserve the memory of real, traumatic geological events across dozens of generations. The myth held a kernel of historical truth, a memory of loss so profound it was woven into the spiritual fabric of a culture. Finding Dwarka does more than just add a site to the map, it validates a way of knowing. It tells us that our ancestors sometimes encoded their history not just in stone but in story, and that by listening to those stories with new ears, we might find our way back to their drowned worlds. The line between a natural wonder and a human blueprint is drawn with startling clarity in the warm, shallow waters of the Bahamas. Here, just off the coast of Bimini, lies a formation that has fueled debate for over half a century. Known as the Bimini Road, it appears as a submerged pathway stretching for nearly half a mile along the seafloor. The stones are massive, some weighing several tons, and they are arranged in a remarkably straight line, with many featuring sharp, 90-degree angles and flat, smooth surfaces that look as if they have been cut and placed with purpose. To the eye of a hopeful explorer, it resembles a paved road, a collapsed wall, or the foundation of a massive structure, a perfect candidate for a lost Atlantean harbor. Its discovery in the 1960s seemed to many like a direct confirmation of prophecy, as the famous psychic Edgar case had once predicted that evidence of Atlantis would rise near Bimini in that very decade. The alignment felt too perfect, the stones too orderly to be mere chance. Yet geology offers a compelling counter-narrative. Many scientists identify the blocks as beach-rock, a type of limestone that forms naturally in shallow tropical waters. As the sediment cements, it can fracture along straight lines due to stress, creating what look like man-made blocks. The relentless forces of tides and currents can then shift these fractured slabs into deceptively neat rows over thousands of years. So, is it a road built by hands or a sidewalk poured by nature? The debate hinges on subtle details that are not easily settled. Proponents of a human origin point to the fitted nature of some stones, their uniformity in size, and the presence of what they argue are tool marks. They suggest it could be a breakwater for an ancient harbor or a ceremonial causeway, perhaps built by a pre-Columbian civilization with seafaring knowledge we have yet to fully appreciate. The Bimini Road, more than any other site, embodies a profound human yearning. It represents our deep desire to touch the legends we have carried for millennia, to turn myth into masonry. Whether a geological masterpiece or a human artifact, its true power lies in the questions it forces us to ask about our own stories. How much of what we call legend is actually faded history, waiting for us to learn how to read the stones beneath the waves? But the search for lost worlds is not confined to the saltwater depths of the oceans. Sometimes the water that hides history is fresh and rests at a breathtaking altitude. Far from any coastline, nestled high in the Andes Mountains between Bolivia and Peru, lies Lake Titicaca, the highest navigable lake in the world. For the local Aymara and Quechua peoples, these deep, cold waters have always been sacred, the birthplace of the sun and the Inca dynasty itself. Modern archaeology has revealed that this spiritual significance runs far deeper than the lake's surface. Beneath the waves, divers have uncovered a landscape that echoes the sacred geography above. They found a seemingly ancient temple structure, complete with stone terraces and a long, submerged wall that stretches into the murky depths. These are not vague shapes or ambiguous formations. These are clear architectural features built by human hands. Dating suggests these ruins could be over 1,000 years old, placing their construction long before the rise of the Inca Empire. This points the finger toward a precursor civilization, most likely the Tiwanaku culture, a powerful and sophisticated society that flourished in the region and whose influence stretched across the Andes. The presence of a temple underwater speaks to a dramatic environmental shift. It was not a sudden cataclysm that sank this site, but a slower, relentless process. Climatic changes after the last ice age, combined with local seismic activity that can tilt land masses, caused the water level in Lake Titicaca to gradually rise over centuries. What was once a holy site on a shoreline or a small island slowly became inundated, a sacred place deliberately abandoned to the advancing water, its purpose remembered only in myth. This discovery fundamentally changes the map of our search. It tells us that lost civilizations are not only sleeping under the sea. They can be found in the deep, cold silence of mountain lakes, in the silt of great rivers, in any body of water that has expanded over time. The evidence of our past is not just offshore, it is potentially in any lake you have ever stood beside, its secrets waiting in the quiet dark below. The idea of a temple slowly claimed by a mountain lake reshapes where we look for lost history. Yet another discovery, this one from the murky waters of India's west coast, pushes the boundaries of time itself. In the Gulf of Khambhat, once known as Khambhat, a routine pollution survey in 2001 made an accidental find that sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. Sonar images revealed something astonishing beneath the thick layers of silt on the seafloor. The scans showed not random shapes, but what appeared to be the outlines of a vast, organized settlement. There were geometric patterns suggesting large structures, the grid of streets, and even features interpreted as a sophisticated drainage system. The scale was immense, hinting at a major urban center, a city lost beneath the waves. To test these ghostly images, researchers performed dredging operations, pulling up samples from the seabed. What emerged from the dark mud was both thrilling and contentious. They recovered worked pieces of wood, stone tools, and fragments of pottery. When some of these materials were subjected to carbon dating, the results were staggering. Initial dates suggested the artifacts could be up to 9,500 years old. If accurate, this timeline is revolutionary. It would place this potential city thousands of years before the rise of the great Indus Valley civilization, like Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, long considered one of the cradles of human urban development. This would mean a sophisticated city-building society existed in this region at the very end of the last ice age, a time when sea levels were far lower and this entire area was dry, fertile land. The implications are profound, suggesting a precursor culture whose entire existence was erased by the rising waters of the Arabian Sea. However, this discovery is surrounded by intense scientific debate. The Gulf of Khambhat is an extremely challenging environment, with powerful currents and water so full of silt that visibility is near zero. Critics argue that the sonar images, while intriguing, are not conclusive proof of human construction, and that natural geological formations can sometimes mimic urban layouts. The artifacts retrieved by dredging, they caution, could have been displaced by currents over millennia, meaning the dated materials might not be in their original context. The extreme dates remain controversial and have not been widely validated by further peer-reviewed study. Yet, even with these cautions, the Gulf of Khambhat structures present a tantalizing possibility. They represent the boldest claim yet for a lost chapter in South Asian history, a civilization that may have laid the groundwork for all that followed before it was consumed by the sea. It challenges the very timeline of human progress, asking us if the first great cities are not buried under deserts, but hidden under oceans, their stories waiting in the silent dark. The Mediterranean holds its own drowned memories, and the waters around Malta whisper of a vanished world. This small island nation is already famous on land for its staggering prehistoric temples, structures like Jiwith, dot above Gantaja and Haga Kim, built from colossal stone blocks thousands of years before the pyramids of Egypt. Their origins are a profound mystery, but the true scale of that mystery extends far beyond the shoreline. Beneath the clear blue waves, divers have found a ghostly mirror image of the landscape above. They have documented massive stone blocks scattered on the seabed, formations that look like the foundations of structures, and something even more evocative, ancient cart ruts. These are deep, parallel grooves carved into the limestone bedrock, identical to the ones found on Malta's dry land, which are believed to be the worn tracks left by countless wooden carts over centuries. But the underwater ones tell a different story. They do not simply stop at the water's edge. They run straight off the coastal cliffs and continue their precise paths along the seafloor, descending into the deep blue until they vanish in the murk. This is not a road to nowhere, it is a road to a world that is no longer there. These submerged ruts are the silent, undeniable testimony of ancient land routes, highways that once connected communities across a coastal plain that no longer exists. They indicate that the temple builders of Malta did not live on the small islands we see today. They inhabited a much larger, more expansive landmass, a peninsula, or even a land bridge that connected to nearby Sicily during periods of lower sea level. As the glaciers melted at the end of the last ice age, the rising Mediterranean slowly flooded this low-lying territory, swallowing villages, farmland, and sacred sites. The great temples that remain on the high ground were likely just the central heart of a much larger cultural territory, the parts that were fortunate enough to be built on higher ground. The rest of their world, the everyday paths and perhaps even sister temples, now lies under 100 feet of water. This discovery transforms our understanding of these ancient people. They were not isolated islanders, but part of a broader, connected landscape, master builders whose true domain has been halved by the sea. Every straight groove on the seafloor is a line drawn on a lost map, a poignant reminder that history is not just written in the stones that survive, but in the paths that lead into the deep. The submerged cart ruts of Malta lead our search northward to a different kind of lost landscape, one defined not by temples but by forests and rivers. Beneath the cold, grey waves of the North Sea lies a forgotten continent in its own right, a place archaeologists call Doggerland. For thousands of years, this was not seafloor, but a vast, fertile plain that connected the British Isles to mainland Europe. It was a rich mosaic of rolling hills, dense forests, meandering rivers, and marshlands, teeming with wildlife and home to communities of Mesolithic hunter-gatherers. This was their world, a complete and thriving ecosystem where people fished in its rivers, hunted deer and aurochs in its woods, and gathered food from its lush environment. Then the world changed. As the last ice age retreated, meltwater began to pour into the oceans. Around 6,500 years before the Common Era, the rising seas finally breached a natural land bridge in what is now the English Channel. The result was catastrophic and permanent. The North Sea rushed in, swallowing this entire country within a relatively short span of time, transforming a vibrant homeland into a silent, watery grave. Today, Doggerland is gone, but it is not forgotten. Fishermen trawling the seabed have for centuries pulled up surprising catches, not just fish, but ancient animal bones, sharp flint tools, and even large pieces of peat containing perfectly preserved tree stumps and roots, a sunken forest frozen in time. These are not the grand stones of a city, but the intimate remnants of daily life, a bone harpoon point used for fishing, a flint scraper for preparing hides, the very soil in which people walk. This discovery fundamentally shifts our perspective. The search for lost civilizations often focuses on monumental architecture, on finding the next great pyramid or temple complex. Doggerland offers something different and deeply poignant. It reveals the loss of an entire way of life, a complete human history woven into an ecosystem that no longer exists. It shows us that rising seas did not just erase cities of stone, they erased worlds of wood and earth, swallowing the stories of countless generations who lived, loved, and adapted there. In the preserved peat and the scattered tools pulled from the North Sea mud, we find a powerful and sobering reminder. Climate change is not a modern invention. It is a force with a long, deep reach, capable of redrawing the map of human habitation and ending chapters of our story with the relentless rise of water. Doggerland's tragedy is a lesson from our deep past, echoing with relevance for our shared future. The story of Doggerland reminds us that lost landscapes are not just coastal, they can be found in the heart of continents, hidden in the dark water of a lake. In the quiet woodlands of southern Wisconsin, Rock Lake holds a secret that has fueled local legend for over a century. Beneath its often murky surface, sonar scans and reports from divers over the decades have described something startling: smooth, stone structures that appear to have distinct, sloping sides and sharp angles, resembling pyramids resting on the lakebed. These are not vague shapes, but formations that some claim have a clear architectural geometry, with some reports suggesting they are aligned in a specific pattern. For generations, stories have circulated among the local communities of a Native American city that once stood here, a place of significance that was later flooded, its structures preserved in the cold, fresh water. The discovery of these potential pyramids seems to give tangible form to those long-held oral traditions, creating a powerful link between folklore and a physical mystery resting in the deep. Yet, as with so many of these sites, the truth is layered. Geologists offer a compelling natural explanation. The region was sculpted by glaciers, and the movement of these immense ice sheets can leave behind large, erratic boulders and create unusual bedrock formations. The specific shape of these underwater objects could be the result of such glacial activity, with natural fracturing and erosion over millennia creating the illusion of crafted stone. Another fascinating possibility connects to the known history of the area's early inhabitants. The region is famous for its effigy mounds, enormous earthen sculptures built by Native American cultures in the shape of animals and spirits. Could these submerged stone forms be a related, but much rarer, type of ceremonial structure, perhaps built on a shoreline that later flooded as water levels in the lake rose? This would make them not a lost city, but a sacred site, a place of deep cultural meaning that was gradually reclaimed by the water. Rock Lake's mystery may never be fully settled without more conclusive, peer-reviewed exploration, but its significance is undeniable. It demonstrates with perfect clarity that the search for submerged prehistory is a global phenomenon. It is not limited to the saltwater coasts of Japan or the Mediterranean. It exists in the lakes of North America, in the lochs of Scotland, in the high-altitude waters of South America. every body of water that has changed its level over the centuries is a potential keeper of secrets, each with its own local stories, its own geological puzzles, and its own quiet challenge to the map of our ancient past. Across the vast Pacific, another stone city tells a story of engineering and encroaching water. Madol, a breathtaking complex off the island of Pohnpei, stands as a Venice of the ancient world. Its name fittingly means the spaces between, referring to the intricate network of canals that weave between nearly 100 artificial islets. While its towering walls and enigmatic tombs rise above the lagoon's surface, the true genius of Madol lies beneath the waterline. The entire city is built upon foundations of colossal basalt logs, each one painstakingly quarried from the other side of the island and transported across miles of open sea. These stones, some weighing many tons, were then stacked like Lincoln logs to create stable platforms in the shallow lagoon, platforms upon which all other structures were raised. This was not a city built on solid ground. It was a city willed into existence upon the water itself, a testament to a seafaring culture with profound knowledge of engineering and hydrodynamics. The sophistication is staggering, suggesting a society that mastered its challenging environment rather than being limited by it. Yet, the water that defines Madol also tells a story of change. The partial submergence of its foundational layers and lower canals is a crucial clue. It suggests that when Madol was first constructed, perhaps over 1,000 years ago, the water levels in the lagoon were slightly lower. The builders likely worked on damp ground or in very shallow water, creating their artificial islands just above the tidal reach. Over the centuries, a combination of gradual land subsidence, the natural sinking of the coral foundations under the immense weight of the stone, and the global rise in sea levels have allowed the Pacific to reclaim parts of the city. This slow-motion flooding connects Madol to the global pattern we have been tracing. It was not struck by a sudden cataclysm, but like so many coastal sites, it has been engaged in a slow, relentless dialogue with the rising ocean. The builders of Madol understood the sea intimately. They harnessed it for transport and defense, building their sacred city within its embrace. But even their mastery could not hold back the planetary forces that slowly, silently, lift the world's oceans inch by inch over centuries. Today, Madol stands as a monument to both human ingenuity and environmental change, a stone city born from the sea, now gradually being welcomed back into it. From the engineered islands of Madol, we travel to a submerged world of a far older kind. Deep in the Sicilian Channel, the stretch of sea separating Sicily from the coast of Tunisia, a single stone tells a profound story. Resting on the seafloor nearly 130 feet below the surface, researchers discovered a colossal monolith. It is a staggering piece of worked stone, over 39 feet long, and it bears the unmistakable signature of human hands. The stone is not a random boulder. It has a clear, purposeful shape with 3 regular holes drilled through it at precise points. One hole runs completely through its width, while 2 others are found on its sides. This is not the work of natural erosion. This is deliberate craftsmanship, a piece of stone prepared for a specific, unknown purpose. Its location is the key to its mystery. Today, it lies isolated on a barren underwater plateau called the Adventure Bank. But during the last glacial maximum, when sea levels were dramatically lower, this was not seafloor at all. This was dry land, part of a vast coastal plain and a land bridge that connected Sicily to mainland Italy, and by extension to the broader European continent. This region was a thriving ecosystem, a hunting and gathering ground for prehistoric communities who followed the migrations of animals and the seasonal growth of plants. The monolith was not placed in the water, it was placed on the earth. It stood as a marker, a meeting point, or perhaps part of a larger structure like a primitive dock or a tidal fish trap. Its drilled holes suggest it was meant to be anchored or connected to something else, to hold ropes or wooden beams. It was a fixed point in a living landscape. Then the ice melted and the waters rose. The land bridge vanished beneath the Mediterranean, and the monolith was abandoned to the deep, left alone on what became a submerged bank. Its isolation now is as significant as its construction. It stands as a solitary sentinel, proof that we do not always need to find an entire city to confirm a lost human presence. Sometimes a single artifact, a lone piece of shaped stone resting where no stone should logically be worked, is enough to redraw the map of ancient human movement. This monolith is a whisper from a drowned geography, a tangible clue that people lived, worked, and shaped their environment in a place we now only navigate by boat. It reminds us that the seafloor is not just a repository for grand ruins, but also for the simple, powerful objects that marked the daily world of our ancestors, objects that now mark the edges of a forgotten home. The solitary monolith in the Sicilian Channel is a powerful clue, but for a complete picture of a lost world, we need to see the entire community. Off the sun-drenched coast of southern Greece, the Mediterranean cradles a discovery that provides exactly that, a full city laid bare. This is Pavlopetri, the oldest known submerged city on our planet. Dating back over 5,000 years, this is not a collection of ambiguous stones or a single mysterious structure. Pavlopetri is a complete urban blueprint preserved in exquisite detail on the sandy seafloor. Archaeologists have mapped its entire layout, a ghostly grid of streets that still define neighborhoods, the clear foundations of homes and workshops, central courtyards, and even tombs placed respectfully on the city's outskirts. Every element of a functioning Bronze Age settlement is here, frozen in a moment of time. The clarity is its greatest gift. Unlike ancient cities on land, which are often buried under centuries of later construction and rebuilding, Pavlopetri has no such layers. It was abandoned and then submerged, leaving its original plan perfectly intact, a single snapshot of prehistoric urban life. There is no Roman market built over a Greek temple, no medieval castle on top of a Bronze Age wall. This city is a pristine archaeological capsule, offering an unambiguous view into how people lived, worked, and organized their community at the dawn of European civilization. We can trace the route a potter might have walked from his home to his workshop, see how houses were clustered together, and understand how public spaces were integrated into the daily flow of life. The cause of its sinking is also remarkably clear, removing it from the realm of myth. Pavlopetri was not lost to a sudden, legendary cataclysm, but to the relentless geological reality of the region. This part of Greece is seismically active, where the Earth's plates slowly grind against one another. Over centuries, this activity caused the land beneath the city to gradually subside, to sink, while the sea level concurrently rose. It was a slow, inevitable drowning, likely giving the inhabitants generations to adapt and eventually relocate, leaving their city to be quietly claimed by the encroaching sea. This makes Pavlopetri a different kind of teacher. It shows us that not all lost cities were vanquished in a single dramatic event. Some slipped beneath the waves in a slow, solemn fade, their stories etched not in catastrophe but in gradual change. In its silent streets and orderly rooms, we find a profound connection to our own urban past, a complete chapter of human history written not on parchment, but on the seafloor, waiting for us to learn how to read its sunken streets. Far from the structured streets of Pavlopetri, another kind of marker tells a quieter, more enigmatic story. Across the dark, silty floor of the Gulf of Mexico, explorers have found something unexpected. Scattered in clusters, resting in depths that now reach over 200 feet, are piles of stone. These are not random debris. Each one is a deliberate construction, a cairn built by human hands. They vary in size, some small and simple, others forming larger, more complex mounds. their purpose is not immediately obvious, which is precisely what makes them so fascinating to researchers. These stone cairns were not built underwater. They were placed on dry land on a coastal plain that stretched far beyond today's shoreline, a landscape that existed over 10,000 years ago when sea levels were drastically lower. This places their construction at the very tail end of the last ice age, a time when the first peoples, known as Paleo Indians, were spreading across the Americas. So what were these piles of rock for in that lost world? One compelling theory is that they served as hunting blinds. In the vast, open grasslands of that ancient coast, a hunter could use such a stone pile for concealment, waiting silently for prey like mammoth or giant bison to wander within range. Another idea is that they functioned as territorial markers, signifying a clan's hunting grounds or a sacred area, a way to say this place has meaning in a world without written language. Perhaps they held a ceremonial purpose, acting as memorials or focal points for spiritual practices connected to the land and its bounty. The simple act of piling stone in a specific location is a profound form of communication with both the landscape and the future. It says we were here, this place mattered. The staggering implication of these submerged cairns is a matter of timeline and sophistication. Their presence on a now drowned coastline pushes the evidence of human activity in the Gulf region much further back than some conventional models have suggested. It indicates that these early peoples were not just passing through, but were actively engaging with and modifying their environment, developing a deep, intimate understanding of a geography that would soon vanish forever. They knew the trails, the watering holes, the migratory routes of animals across a terrain we can now only map with sonar. When the great ice sheets melted, the ocean did not just rise, it erased an entire chapter of human experience in this region, leaving only these cryptic stone piles as silent witnesses. They are humble monuments, not to kings or gods, but to survival and adaptation, a testament to a way of life that flourished on a land now sleeping beneath the warm waters of the Gulf. The quiet stone cairns of the Gulf speak of a hunter's world, but another submerged circle tells a story of a different kind of gathering. In the fresh waters of Israel's Sea of Galilee, a discovery rests on the lakebed that defies simple explanation. It is a colossal circle of basalt stones, a structure so massive it is estimated to weigh 60,000 tons. To put that into perspective, that is heavier than many modern ocean liners. This is not a casual arrangement of rocks, it is a deliberate, monumental construction, built from thousands of individual stones, each one gathered and placed with intention. The sheer scale of the labor involved is almost incomprehensible. It speaks to a society, likely prehistoric, that possessed not just the manpower but the social organization and shared purpose to undertake a project of this magnitude. They were not merely surviving, they were building something immense, something meant to last, in a place that held profound meaning for them. The mystery deepens when we ask why it is underwater. The structure was not built beneath the waves. Geological and archaeological study suggests that when it was constructed, the shores of the Sea of Galilee were in a different place, and this site was on dry land, possibly even overlooking the water. Over the millennia, shifts in the lake's water level, driven by changes in climate and rainfall, slowly encroached upon the site, eventually submerging it and preserving it in the cool, dark silence of the lakebed. This environmental shift is what keeps its secrets, but also what preserved them from later disturbance. The age of the circle is a subject of intense debate, which only adds to its enigma. Some estimates, based on comparisons to similar structures on land, place it at around 4,000 years old, contemporary with the early Bronze Age. Other researchers, looking at sediment layers and its alignment with older shorelines, propose a far more radical timeline, suggesting it could be over 12,000 years old. If the older date is accurate, this stone circle would predate Stonehenge by thousands of years, placing its construction at the very dawn of the Neolithic era, when humans were first transitioning to farming and settled life. What was its purpose? Without written records, we are left to interpret the silent stones. The circular form is a powerful, universal symbol, often associated with community, unity, and the cycles of nature. It could have been a ceremonial site, a place for rituals, gatherings, or social bonding that strengthened the community's identity. Given its location and precise construction, some have wondered if it served an astronomical function, aligned with the sun or stars on significant dates, acting as a giant calendar to mark the seasons for an agricultural society. Or perhaps it was a communal fishing structure, a complex weir or trap designed to harness the lake's bounty. We may never know for certain. The Sea of Galilee circle stands as a humbling reminder. It shows us that prehistoric peoples were capable of sophisticated, coordinated projects that transformed their landscape. They invested incredible effort into creating spaces that held meaning, spaces that anchored their community to a specific point in the world. That this anchor now lies underwater is a poignant testament to the slow, powerful forces that reshape our world, leaving behind monuments whose whispers we are still learning to hear. The immense stone circle in the Sea of Galilee is a monument to a community's shared purpose. But what happens when an entire climate changes its mind? Our search now moves from the depths of lakes and seas to a seemingly impossible place, the heart of the world's largest hot desert. Beneath the endless, shifting sands of the Sahara lies a secret that redefines what it means to be a lost civilization. Using satellites and ground-penetrating radar, scientists have mapped a ghostly geography hidden below the desert floor. They found the fossilized traces of immense river systems, wide channels that once carried torrents of water, and the outlines of vast, ancient lakes that could have rivaled some of the largest we see today. This was not always a barren sea of sand. For thousands of years during what is called the African humid period, the Sahara was a green and vibrant land. It was a mosaic of grasslands, savannas, and waterways, teeming with wildlife from elephants to giraffes. And where there is water and life, humans follow. The radar maps reveal more than just old riverbeds. They show the potential footprints of human settlements clustered along those vanished banks, promising sites where tools, pottery, and perhaps even the bones of the people themselves are now buried under countless tons of sand. This discovery profoundly broadens our understanding. A lost civilization does not need to be drowned to be erased. It can be desiccated, slowly suffocated under an advancing desert. The communities that thrived in the green Sahara were not washed away by a flood, but were gradually abandoned as the rains failed, the rivers dried up, and the lush landscape they depended upon transformed into an inhospitable desert over centuries. Their story is one of adaptation until adaptation was no longer possible, a slow-motion exodus driven by a shifting climate. The evidence they left behind is not submerged architecture, but something more intimate: stone tools dropped by a hunter, fragments of clay from a broken pot, or the breathtaking rock art found in places like the Tassili Enaja Plateau in Algeria. These magnificent paintings and carvings show scenes of daily life in a world that is utterly alien to the Sahara of today, depicting people swimming, herds of cattle being watered, and animals that now only exist far to the south. This art is their legacy, a direct message from a lost world saying, "We were here and our home was green." The Sahara's hidden rivers teach us a crucial lesson about the forces that shape human history. Climate change is not a modern phenomenon. It is the most powerful playwright in the long story of our species. It can create paradises and then revoke them, opening new lands for settlement while closing others forever. The rise and fall of sea levels drowned coastal cities, and the retreat of the rains buried inland civilizations under sand. In both cases, the evidence of human achievement was not destroyed, but simply hidden, waiting for the right technology, a satellite's eye or a diver's light, to whisper the stories of those who came before us on lands we can no longer recognize. The transition from a green Sahara to a stone circle half drowned in the sea is a stark one. It brings our search back to the coastline, to a place where the ancient and the aquatic exist in a single, breathtaking frame. On the southern coast of Brittany, France, within the sheltered waters of the Gulf of Morbihan, lies the small island of Lannic. This site holds a powerful and visible testament to the slow creep of the ocean. Here, archaeologists have identified a unique double stone circle, a pair of concentric rings built from towering granite menhirs. One of these rings rests entirely on dry land, its stones standing silent guard on the island soil. The other, however, tells a different story. It is permanently submerged, its stones waiting just beneath the surface of the salt water. At the lowest tides, when the sea pulls back its curtain, these drowned menhirs are revealed, their dark, seaweed-draped forms emerging from the shallows like slumbering giants. The site is hauntingly beautiful and deeply symbolic. It is not a ruin lost to the abyss, but a monument caught in the very act of being reclaimed. This partial submergence provides a direct, observable snapshot of a process that usually happens out of sight. We can stand on the shore and literally see the waterline that has risen to claim half of this sacred space. The stones themselves are the record. They mark a precise moment in a long, slow dialogue between human culture and the natural world. The builders of Lannic did not construct their circles underwater. They erected them on solid ground at a time when the shoreline was farther out and the local sea level was lower. The site was almost certainly a place of profound ceremonial importance, a focal point for rituals, gatherings, and astronomical observations for the Neolithic communities of the region. The dual circles suggest complex symbolic meaning, perhaps representing a cosmic balance or a connection between different realms. Then, over the millennia, the water rose. It was not a sudden flood, but an incremental advance, perhaps so slow that no single generation would have noticed a dramatic change. Season by season, tide by tide, the sea encroached, first lapping at the outer stones, then steadily submerging the entire outer circle, leaving its partner ring stranded on the higher ground. This creates a physical record of the interface between ancient ritual space and the relentless ocean. Lannic is unique because it is not an all-or-nothing mystery. We are not left to wonder if a site is man-made or natural, or to guess at its complete form from fragments. Here we have the complete picture, split in two by time and tide. The submerged circle is a ghost of its former self, yet it remains connected to its twin on the land, a poignant reminder that the landscapes our ancestors held sacred were not static. They were, and still are, in a state of constant, gentle flux, shaped by forces far greater than any single civilization. To see the menhirs of Lannic is to witness history in a state of beautiful, melancholic suspension, a monument forever caught between the world that built it and the sea that now holds it in a watery embrace. From the stone circles of France, we journey to a hidden world of darkness and pristine preservation. The Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico holds a labyrinth beneath its surface, a vast network of flooded caves and sinkholes known as cenotes. These are not just geological wonders, they are some of the most extraordinary time capsules on our planet, holding secrets from the very first chapters of human history in the Americas. For millennia, these caves were dry, offering shelter, fresh water, and sacred passageways for the earliest peoples, known as Paleo-Americans, who ventured into this new world over 13,000 years ago. They left traces of their passage in the profound silence of the underground. Then, as the Ice Age ended and glaciers melted, the rising sea levels pushed groundwater up from below, slowly and irrevocably flooding these caverns. What was once a place of life and exploration became a submerged museum, sealed in a cold, dark, oxygen-poor environment that halts decay almost completely. This unique condition has preserved materials that would have vanished anywhere else on Earth. Wooden tools, plant fibers, and even the footprints of long-extinct animals remain etched in the soft cave floors, looking as if they were made yesterday. Most poignant of all, the waters have safeguarded the resting places of the people themselves. In one such cave, divers discovered the remains of a teenage girl, given the name Naya by researchers. Analysis suggests she lived and tragically passed away in this cave system roughly 13,000 years ago. Her story, pieced together through careful study, offers an intimate, heartbreaking window into the lives and challenges of these pioneering communities. The caves also reveal a spiritual dimension. Later cultures like the Maya viewed these cenotes as sacred portals to the underworld, places to communicate with the gods. Archaeologists have found evidence of this belief in the form of ritual offerings, pottery, jewelry, and other precious objects deliberately placed into the water as gifts to the deities below. This practice layers meaning upon meaning, showing how a place of practical survival for the earliest arrivals later became a focal point of ceremony and cosmology for their descendants. The Yucatan caves teach us that lost worlds are not always grand cities. Sometimes they are intimate spaces, the quiet corners where individuals lived, sought refuge, and performed rites of passage. The flooding that claimed these caverns did not destroy their stories. It suspended them in a kind of perfect stillness, allowing us to meet, across an immense gulf of time, the very first people to call this continent home. In their preserved footprints and resting places, we find a connection that transcends millennia, a reminder that exploration, hardship, and reverence for the earth are threads in the human story that began long before our written histories. The intimate stories preserved in the Yucatan caves show us a world on a human scale, but our next discovery expands that view to a breathtaking continental scope. We must shift our gaze to Southeast Asia, to a sunken world of staggering proportions. During the last ice age, the map of this region looked utterly different. What are now the shallow seas between the islands of Indonesia, Malaysia, and the mainland was not water at all. It was a vast, continuous landmass known to scientists as Sunderland. This was not a small coastal plain or a narrow land bridge. This was a submerged continent in its own right, a territory larger than modern India, connecting what are now separate islands into a single, sprawling peninsula. Imagine a world where you could walk from present-day Vietnam all the way to Bali without ever seeing an ocean. This was that world. It was a lush, verdant landscape of rainforests, rivers, and rolling hills, teeming with life and offering a paradise for human settlement. The sheer scale of this drowned territory is the first clue to its potential importance. An area this vast with such rich resources could have supported not just scattered bands of hunter-gatherers, but potentially significant populations, perhaps even early complex societies. The land was simply too large and too fertile to be empty, yet finding direct evidence of these societies is a monumental challenge. The waters that flooded Sunderland are shallow but notoriously murky, with powerful currents and thick layers of sediment that blanket the ancient soil. Unlike the clear waters of the Mediterranean, where stone structures can be seen, the secrets of Sunderland are buried deep beneath the seabed, hidden under silt and time. So far, the search has not yielded the clear foundations of cities or temples. Instead, the evidence comes to us in more subtle, but no less compelling, forms. Genetic studies of modern populations across Southeast Asia suggest a deep and complex history of human migration and settlement that points back to this once exposed shelf. The patterns in our DNA hint that this region was not just a corridor people passed through, but a heartland where populations lived and thrived for thousands of years. Furthermore, some of the earliest evidence for the cultivation of plants like taro and bananas, which reshaped human history, appears to originate in this general region. Could Sunderland have been a cradle for early experiments in agriculture, a place where people first began to deliberately shape their environment in ways that would eventually lead to settled life. It is a tantalizing possibility. The rising seas at the end of the Ice Age did not just inch forward here, they surged. As glaciers melted, the ocean reclaimed this enormous continent with relentless speed, possibly flooding hundreds of miles of coastline within a few generations. This was not a slow subsidence but a rapid drowning, an event that would have forced entire cultures to retreat, adapt, or vanish, their stories and innovations scattered to the higher grounds that became today's islands. Sunderland represents the ultimate ghost landscape. It is a lost continent in all but geological name, a foundational piece of the human story that now exists only in our models, our genes, and our imagination. Its absence is a powerful presence, a silent reminder that some of the most important stages of our prehistoric journey may have unfolded on a stage that is now permanently underwater, leaving us to piece together the plot from the survivors who reached the final, drying shores. The silent floor of the Baltic Sea holds more than just one enigmatic shape. Across its cold, dark basins, a different kind of discovery emerges, one not of grand monuments but of everyday genius. Scattered along the ancient, drowned shorelines are the preserved remnants of a way of life. Archaeologists have found intricate wooden fish traps, their woven walls still standing after thousands of years, waiting for a catch that will never come. They have mapped the outlines of stationary fishing structures, complex systems of stakes and barriers designed to channel and catch fish with remarkable efficiency. Alongside these, tools carved from bone and antler speak of a deep, intimate knowledge of the environment, each harpoon point and leister prong crafted for a specific task in the aquatic world. These are not the artifacts of a nomadic, struggling people. They are the signatures of a highly adapted, semi-sedentary society that understood its home with profound clarity. These Mesolithic communities did not merely live near the coast, they were woven into its very fabric, building their lives and their culture around the rhythmic bounty of the sea and the estuaries. Their technology was not about conquering nature, but about collaborating with it, creating sustainable systems that allowed them to thrive in one place for generation after generation. This discovery shifts our perspective in a crucial way. The search for lost civilizations often draws our eyes upward, toward the peaks of pyramids and the heights of temple walls. But here, in the Baltic mud, we are asked to look down, to appreciate the sophistication etched into humble materials. This was a civilization measured not in stone blocks, but in woven willow and carved bone, a testament to a sustainable lifeway that flourished for millennia. Its disappearance was not the result of war or social collapse, but of a slower, more inexorable force. As the great ice sheets melted, the land itself, freed from the immense weight of the glaciers, began to slowly rebound, rising in the north. Meanwhile, the global sea level was climbing from all the meltwater. In the Baltic region, these two powerful forces engaged in a complex dance, but ultimately, the rising ocean won. The water advanced, swallowing the very coastal ecosystems these people had mastered, flooding their fishing grounds, their settlements, and their carefully built structures. They were not overrun by an enemy army, but by the tide itself, forced to retreat to ever higher ground until their original homeland was entirely lost beneath the waves. What they left behind is a subtle but profound record, a whisper of a different kind of achievement. It reminds us that human history is written not only in the language of kings and monuments, but also in the quiet, persistent work of communities who found harmony with their world, a harmony preserved in the deep long after the last fisher walked its shores. These scattered pieces form a single, startling picture when we step back to see them as a whole. From the Bimini road to the sunken forests of Doggerland, from the drowned temples of Lake Titicaca to the ghostly outlines of Sunderland, a powerful pattern emerges. Each one of these sites, in its own way, is a timestamp marking the same global event. the catastrophic rise in sea levels that followed the end of the last great ice age. As the world warmed and the continental glaciers melted, the oceans rose by over 400 feet, swallowing an estimated 10 million square miles of coastal land worldwide. This was not a gentle, imperceptible creep. In geological terms, it was a rapid and relentless flood, a planetary-scale transformation that reshaped the human world forever. The global distribution of these underwater sites is the second crucial piece of evidence. They are not clustered in one legendary location like Atlantis, but scattered across every ocean and major sea, from the Pacific to the Mediterranean, from the Baltic to the Gulf of Mexico. This tells us that the loss was not a singular tragedy for one advanced culture, but a shared, global experience for countless coastal communities, each with its own unique story and level of sophistication, all facing the same rising tide. This leads us to the third, and perhaps most profound, convergence, the point where ancient myth meets modern geology. Stories of great floods and sunken lands are not exclusive to one culture. They are a universal human memory, found in the epics of Mesopotamia, the sacred texts of India, the oral traditions of Native American tribes, and the legends of countless island peoples. For a long time, these were seen as purely symbolic tales, stories about divine punishment or cosmic renewal. Now, we must consider they might be something else entirely, cultural echoes of a real, traumatic historical event, passed down across hundreds of generations. The collective weight of these 20 discoveries challenges the very framework of how we understand human prehistory. Traditional models often present a linear narrative, a neat progression from simple hunter-gatherers to settled farmers, and finally to city-building civilizations, all unfolding on the dry land we inhabit today. But what if that story is incomplete? What if it is merely the surviving fragment of a much richer, more complex tapestry? The evidence beneath the waves suggests that the rise of human civilization may be far older, with multiple, independent centers of innovation that developed along now drowned coastlines. These were likely places of incredible abundance where rivers met the sea, offering rich marine resources and fertile land, the perfect incubators for cultural and technological advancement. When the seas rose, these coastal cradles were the first to vanish, taking their achievements with them. This forces us to view prehistory not as a straight line, but as a fragmented mosaic. Our current understanding is based on the pieces that survived on higher ground, the inland sites that escaped the deluge. But what about the chapters written on the continental shelves? Those pages are now underwater, their text written in stone circles, foundation walls, and stone tools resting in the silt. Reading that text requires more than just curiosity. It demands advanced technology, significant resources, and the collective will to look beyond the shoreline. The story these submerged sites tell is ultimately one of human resilience in the face of planetary change. They show us that our ancestors were not passive victims of their environment, but active, ingenious participants who built meaningful lives in landscapes we can no longer access. Their legacy is a haunting reminder that the ground beneath our feet and the sea level at our shores is not permanent. It is a lesson in humility and adaptation, whispered up from the deep, asking us to remember the forgotten maps of our shared past. These whispers from the deep urge us to reconsider the entire narrative of human progress. The structured stones of Yonaguni, the drowned forests of Doggerland, and every other submerged site we have explored are not isolated curiosities. Together, they form a chorus, a collective voice from a time when coastlines stretched far beyond their current borders, and human communities thrived in landscapes we can now only map with sonar. This chorus suggests a powerful, recurring theme in our deep past. Advanced social organization, sophisticated environmental knowledge, and cultural innovation may not have been a singular invention that spread from one cradle of civilization. Instead, they may have emerged repeatedly like sparks in various coastal regions blessed with abundant resources. These were likely places of incredible potential, where rivers met the sea, offering rich fishing, fertile land, and opportunities for trade and connection. These communities developed their own unique ways of life, built structures that anchored them to their world, and told stories to explain their place within it. Yet, their stories were written on a shoreline that was destined to vanish. The planetary change at the end of the last ice age, the relentless rise of the oceans, acted as a great reset button. It did not discriminate between simple settlements and complex societies. It submerged them all, preserving fragments of their existence in the silent museum of the seafloor. This forces us to view prehistory not as a neat, linear ascent, but as a more fragmented and resilient tapestry, woven with threads we are only now beginning to pull from the deep. And this ancient lesson carries a profound resonance for our own time. As global sea levels continue their slow, steady climb today, these sunken sites transform from mere archaeological mysteries into stark reminders. They are monuments to human vulnerability in the face of planetary forces, but also to our enduring spirit. They show us communities that adapted until they could adapt no more, that built meaning even in landscapes they knew were changing. Their legacy is not one of defeat, but of persistence, a testament to the human drive to create, to belong to a place, and to remember. Our exploration of these 20 underwater discoveries is more than a journey into the past, it is a reflection on continuity. If this glimpse into our submerged history has captivated you, there are countless more mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Consider subscribing for more journeys into the greatest enigmas of our shared story. And we would love to hear your thoughts. Which of these lost worlds intrigues you the most? Share your perspective in the comments below.